Welcome back to Bonkers for Boro. Well, Middlesbrough are at the midway point of the January transfer window, and things are really starting to heat up nicely with regards to incomings and outgoings. Middlesbrough have been busy behind the scenes. There's been a lot of work going on. No real deals of note have happened just yet in the January transfer window, where barring Sammy Silvera going out on loan to Blackpool, meaning that the next couple of weeks could be very, very busy as far as Middlesbrough's recruitment team are concerned. The club are hoping to do incoming business and outgoing business in the next couple of weeks before the deadline on February the 3rd. And with a lot of speculation building around the number of players, it's going to be very, very busy for people like me to keep on top of it all. So what I wanted to do was just do a little run through of where we're at with all of these bits and pieces. And there's been quite a few links coming out in the last few days. It's been quite tricky to keep on top of it all. So I've decided to round them all up for you in one handy little piece so you know exactly what's going on. And there's 5 key targets on Middlesbrough's radar at the moment, 5 key deals which could potentially be done as of right now. So what I'm going to do, I'll get stuck right into them to give you the latest on what is going on with Middlesbrough's transfer window. Let's go. First up is a potential deal for this man, George Edmundson. Now, it might not be the kind of signing that's going to get fans' pulses racing, given that he's already on loan with the club and he's a very solid, reliable player at central defence. But it is a deal that Middlesbrough are looking to do this month. Now, for a little bit of context, so George Edmundson joined Middlesbrough on a season-long loan from Ipswich last summer. He's going in. Well, he's in the final year of his contract at Portman Road, meaning that he'll be out of contract in the summer, meaning that he would be available on a free transfer there. But what Middlesbrough are hoping to do is they are hoping to be able to turn this loan move into a permanent deal this month. Now, there's a number of pros and cons to doing so. Obviously, for one of the cons being that Middlesbrough will be having to pay a transfer fee for someone who's currently on loan, someone who would be available on a free transfer in the summer. But the pros for it very much outweigh them, given the fact that Middlesbrough would be able to secure his services long term in this transfer window. It would also mean that Middlesbrough would be able to free up a spot for a potential loan player before the end of the January window. Middlesbrough currently have him and Ben Doak currently on loan, meaning that if Edmundson's deal did become permanent, it would free up an extra space for someone else to come in on loan before the end of the January window. So the reports at the moment are suggesting that Middlesbrough have entered talks with Ipswich over a permanent deal. The offer that's been put on the table is worth around about £700,000 in total. That's a 350 grand fee up front, with an extra 350 grand in potential add-ons if Middlesbrough do get promoted. Now, that offer has been rejected by Ipswich. They clearly think that there might be a potential to squeeze a little bit more money out of Middlesbrough, and they're probably right. I think George Edmundson is a player who is in his sort of prime years. He is someone who's a very solid, reliable operator at Championship level, and so for Middlesbrough, I do think they'd be willing to go a little bit higher than what they've paid in that or what they've offered so far. So that's certainly one to watch. I do think it's a deal, in my opinion, that will get done during the month of January. I think it'll be a really good, solid signing. I think George Edmundson, as well as being a reliable performer on the pitch, I think he's a big person off the pitch as well. He's a big character. He's a leader in the dressing room. And that has been one of my criticisms of Middlesbrough this season, that we have tended to lack a few leaders. I think with people like Darragh Lenihan out injured and Tommy Smith, Johnny Howson, he's not a shouter and a screamer, but he is a leader in his own way. I do think that Middlesbrough have lacked leaders on the pitch in a number of key games. Luke Ayling's another one that springs to mind as well, given his injury problems. So I think signing George Edmundson on a permanent basis would be a really good move for Middlesbrough, a really solid piece of business. And for Middlesbrough, it is one that they are actively looking to do in the next couple of weeks, and one which, in my opinion, probably should be able to get done. Now, this is a link that's been around since the start of the January transfer window, and that's linking Middlesbrough with a loan move for Mark Travers. Now, the Bournemouth goalkeeper is second fiddle at the Vitality Stadium. It means that game time's been limited for him, and I think for him, it's the opportunity to go out and get some regular football. For Middlesbrough, it is a move that sort of makes sense, I guess, given the current goalkeeping situation at the club. Middlesbrough went into the season with 3 first-choice goalkeepers, 3 senior goalkeepers, I guess, of people who could come in and do a job for the team. But at the moment, we're down to just one, the third choice of those 3. Seny Dieng started the season as Middlesbrough's number 1, but he's been struggling with an injury of late. There has also been a few murmurs that he could potentially be moved on. Soldrin seemed to come in, and he bided his time, and he was challenging for that first team jersey, and he seemed to secure it in December. He put in a number of really good performances. Seemed to oust Seny Dieng from that number one spot, and he looked like he was going to be set to keep the gloves for the rest of the campaign. But he suffered a serious shoulder injury, which is going to keep him out until March or April, it's expected. So as it stands at the moment, Middlesbrough are limited to just one senior goalkeeper in Tom Glover. Tom Glover is someone who is solid enough, I guess. I'm personally not entirely convinced by him, and I think that's the reason why Middlesbrough, not because of I say so, but I think that's why Middlesbrough are looking to potentially bring in another goalkeeper if they can during this transfer window. Mark Travers would be a loan option. He would be someone who would come in until the end of the season, but as is the way with Middlesbrough's recruitment, they don't really tend to sign players on loan unless there's an opportunity to potentially sign them on a permanent basis. Doak excluded, but we'll get onto him in just a bit. So I think Mark Travers would be a really solid piece of business if he was to come in. It would give Middlesbrough the opportunity to take a look at him at close quarters, for him to play some football. I do think that he would probably be Middlesbrough's first choice goalkeeper. Like I said, I think Dieng's sort of fallen down the pecking order, and I think with Bryn out for the majority of the rest of the season, I do think there'd be a real opportunity for Travers to come in and get some game time. So for me, it'd be a really solid piece of business if Middlesbrough could pull this off. But there is interest from a number of clubs in the Championship. I know that Watford, quite notably, have been linked with a move for him as well. So while there's nothing concrete to report on this one, it is just interest at this point. It is one that, fans will be very keen to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. Now, this is a man that all Middlesbrough fans are very familiar with, and that's Ryan Giles. Giles, of course, spent the 2022-23 season on loan with Middlesbrough, was excellent at left-back and provided 11 assists over the course of the campaign. Middlesbrough did try to sign him that summer, but since then he's moved on to Luton and Hull, where things just haven't really worked out for him. As it stands at the moment, Middlesbrough are interested in a move for Ryan Giles. There's been preliminary talks held with Hull City over a potential deal this month. Hull are open to doing some business, which wasn't the case over the summer. Hull had just triggered an option to sign him for £4 million from Luton in the summer, and it seems that they just kind of weren't keen to move him on that quickly and potentially make a loss that quickly on a left back who has been struggling a little bit. But this month it does seem very different. Hull are sitting 23rd in the Championship. They're not really convinced by Giles. They haven't really been able to get the best from him. I don't think anyone has since Ryan Giles left Middlesbrough. So it is a move that sort of makes sense. It is one to watch. I know that people have been saying that over the last few transfer windows, but Michael Carrick is a big fan of Ryan Giles, and if the opportunity to sign this month does arise, I do think Middlesbrough would jump at the opportunity. I'm not going to go into too much more detail on Ryan Giles because I'd have done a dedicated video about Giles and Middlesbrough's interest, including some insights from Craig Johns, which you'll be able to see. I'll put the link up there so you can see it. So you can see all about Ryan Giles and the interest from Middlesbrough and how likely that deal is to happen. But certainly one to keep an eye on because Middlesbrough are long-term admirers of Giles, and it is a move which could potentially come off before the end of the January transfer window. So now we move on to outgoings, and of course there's a couple of Middlesbrough players who are really attracting a lot of interest from clubs outside of the Championship. Ben Doak is one who has attracted a number of admirers because of his performances in the first half of the season. He's just been absolutely outstanding since he arrived from Liverpool. He's exciting, he's aggressive. He's now getting the numbers to back it up with assists and goals as well. And he's really been probably one of Middlesbrough's standout performers this season. That in turn has led to a number of big clubs coming in for him in the Premier League. There's been interest from Crystal Palace and Ipswich Town. Both of those clubs, according to TalkSport, both of those clubs came in with offers of 15 and 16 million pounds at the start of the window. Those offers were rejected by Liverpool. Liverpool holding out for a fee closer to 30 million pounds if they were to sell him this month. Now, Doak is highly rated at Liverpool. He's someone who could have a really bright future at Anfield. I know a few people have suggested that he could be a potential successor to Mohamed Salah, and that's quite a big ask for young shoulders, I guess. But he is someone who's highly rated, someone who will certainly go on to to become a Premier League player. But I think with clubs struggling and facing the pressure to comply with PSR, profit and sustainability rules, I do think the opportunity for Liverpool to potentially sell him, get 25-30 million pounds in their pockets to balance the books a little bit, could be really, really appealing. Obviously, he arrived as a real youngster from Celtic for a fee worth about 400 grand, so that it would go down as pretty much pure profit if they were to sell him to a Premier League club. But that's as far as it's got, really, as far as Ben Doak's concerned. Liverpool have set their asking price, which is £30 million. No one really seems to be able to get too close to that. Ipswich, who, as I mentioned, were keen. They've moved to sign Jadon Philogene from Aston Villa. I think that deal's worth around about £21 million. And that's pretty much done at the time of recording. Crystal Palace, they were the other club who were interested in Ben Doak, and they're close to signing Romain Esse from Millwall, again for a fee that's significantly lower than that £30. So for Middlesbrough, that can only really be good news, the fact that these two clubs have moved on to other targets and have been able to sign people, because that does sort of lessen the demand around Ben Doak and what could potentially happen. And there have been mumblings in the last few days that Bournemouth were interested in a move for Ben Doak. There'd been speculation that Bournemouth were considering a potential move for Ben Doak that would involve Antoine Semenyo moving to Anfield. The hope would be that Liverpool would want to sign him for a substantial fee, probably somewhere in the region of 50-60 million pounds. But then Ben Doak could potentially be part of that deal, a sort of a make weight to head to Bournemouth. But that's been sort of played down at both ends. It seems that Bournemouth aren't particularly keen on signing Ben Doak. So at the moment, it's as you were, which is great news for Middlesbrough fans. There's 2 weeks left of the January transfer window. And as it stands, there's nothing concrete really to say that Ben Doak will be moving on. Obviously, Middlesbrough want Doak to stay to see out the second half of his season-long loan from Liverpool. And that's what Middlesbrough want, because they want to be able to keep him to be able to challenge for promotion in the second half of the season. Ben Doak, to all intents and purposes, seems happy at Middlesbrough. He's enjoying his football. He's getting to play attacking football. He's playing every week. He's getting to show his qualities. And sources close to Liverpool are very happy with his deal with Middlesbrough as well. So it seems very, very unlikely. You learn never to say never in this business, but it seems very, very unlikely that Liverpool would recall Ben Doak to send him out on loan to another club. If he is to stay out on loan, it does seem that Middlesbrough would be the club that he would stay with. But of course, there is that niggling doubt about what will happen on the transfer front. It may be closer to deadline day if someone does come in with an offer that is closer to Liverpool's £30 million valuation than Liverpool would have a decision to make. And that could leave Middlesbrough in a tricky position, because they would have no power over Ben Doak. He would be recalled at 24 hours notice. But it is clear from sources, from people like the Gazette and places like that, that the Middlesbrough are monitoring this situation. They are looking at potential alternatives to Ben Doak. So if that does happen and they do decide to recall Ben Doak back to Liverpool so that they can sell him on, Middlesbrough do have a list of shortlists available for players who could potentially come in to replace him. So certainly one to watch, but as it stands at the moment, so far so good. Unfortunately, one deal that does look increasingly likely to happen is the deal to take Emmanuel Latte Lath away from Middlesbrough. Now, he's been linked with everyone and sundry really over the last few weeks. At the back end of December, he was linked with a number of Premier League clubs. West Ham were interested. Ipswich were interested. I think Southampton were interested at one point. Leeds United, they were credited with an interest, although that was quickly played down by the Yorkshire Evening Post, and I couldn't really see Emmanuel Latte Lath going to another club in the Championship. But that Premier League interest seemed to seemed to reduce slightly. It seemed that kind of interest, or it seemed that Emmanuel Latte Lath wasn't a priority for any of these sorts of clubs. But then everyone was a little bit blindsided when a big offer came from the MLS. Atlanta United came in with an MLS record transfer bid of £20 million in total. So that would have included £18 million up front, plus £2 million in potential add-ons. They were also willing to offer Emmanuel Latte Lath a significant salary increase to move to the MLS. Now, that's an offer which at the time of recording is still on the table. It is one which seems to be quite close to Middlesbrough's valuation. I think Middlesbrough seem to value the player at between 20 and 25 million pounds, so they're not too far away. They're certainly at the lower end of that bracket. In terms of what is an acceptable offer. I guess behind the scenes, there's potential that Middlesbrough could be looking to it to see whether there are any other suitors, someone who could potentially drive up the price for Latte Lath. But it is a deal which has a feeling that could well happen in the next couple of weeks. This whole transfer saga started back in the summer with that deadline day interest from Ipswich Town. They offered £20 million for Latte Lath on deadline day. Middlesbrough rejected it, and Latte Lath had no choice but to get his head down. And he's done well since then. To be fair, he's scored 10 goals in the Championship this season. Performance, you've got to say, and that is what has led to the interest being continued into January. Now, although Middlesbrough did reject a £20 million offer in the summer, it's not really known. No one is really going to be able to decipher whether that was down to the fact that the offer wasn't enough money for them, whether it's the case that Middlesbrough value him higher than that, and 20 million is just an absolute no, we're not selling him for that amount because we know that he's worth more, or whether it was, in my opinion, probably more likely the fact that it came on deadline day. It would have been an absolute disaster to lose Emmanuel Latte Lath on transfer deadline day. One of our most important players. Yes, we'd have had the £20 million in our back pocket, but we wouldn't have been able to go out and really pursue an alternative for him, which would have left us quite vulnerable for the first half of the season. So, in my opinion, that's probably why that offer was rejected in the summer. Obviously, that can't be confirmed, and that's just a conjecture. But that to me means that coming into January, that there is the potential that with Atlanta's offer being worth 20 million, that could be an offer that is accepted at that amount, or maybe slightly more if Middlesbrough can potentially haggle to get a little bit more money out of it. So certainly one to watch. This one does have a feeling, out of all the deals that we've discussed today, this is the one which has a feeling which could take off at any moment, really. It does feel like Latte Lath is likely to move on from Middlesbrough this month. His agent has been particularly outspoken in the months leading up to the winter transfer window, stating that he feels like his client deserves a move. He deserves to be playing in the Premier League. He was disappointed after the summer. There's been a lot of quite concerning noises coming out from his agent in the months since the summer. He's been a little too outspoken, in my opinion, with trying to flog his client, which has really kind of rubbed Middlesbrough's fans up the wrong way. But I think that does sort of point to the suggestion that he is actively trying to move Latte Lath on. Agent works for Latte Lath, so although Latte Lath is clearly committed to Middlesbrough, his performances on the pitch, you can't really question him, and he is wholehearted in the way that he plays for Middlesbrough. When he's on the pitch, he's chasing things down, and he's passionate when he is playing. But it does seem that if the opportunity was to arise to move on, he would want to take it. I think the Premier League is the priority for Latte Lath. I think that would be his first choice in terms of where he ends up next. But at the same time, the opportunity to go over to the MLS, be one of the biggest transfer fee in MLS history, more than anyone else who has ever played over in the MLS. It will be a bigger transfer fee than anyone else who's been over there. It'd be one of the highest paid players in the league as well. So there'd be a real status to that as well. So for Latte Lath, that could be a really big opportunity. And to be fair to him, you can't really blame him. I think every player, although fans get frustrated and think it's all about money and that sort of thing, it is a short career, and players are ambitious and they want to reach as high a level as they possibly can. And Latte Lath is a very, very talented boy. He is someone who has proven over the last season and a half that he's one of the best strikers in the Championship. I think he deserves the opportunity to challenge himself at a higher level. In my opinion, obviously, I would rather him stay with Middlesbrough and get Middlesbrough promoted and then help us in the Premier League. But as it stands at the moment, there's certainly no certainties that Middlesbrough will be getting promoted this season. So for Latte Lath, if the opportunity does come on to join a club that he's interested in, then I think Middlesbrough would have to wish him all the best. Ultimately, Middlesbrough signed him for a much lower fee. It was a fee in the region of, I think it was around about £4 million that we signed him from Atalanta in Italy, which is very confusing. So to sign him for £4 million from Atalanta and sell him for potentially $20 million to Atlanta in the US, very confusing, but it is very good business for Middlesbrough. That would be a really tidy profit on a player who was a bit of a a rough diamond when he came to Middlesbrough. Obviously, people have seen the financial statements that have come out from the club in the last week and seen just how much money Middlesbrough are losing. It really does emphasise how important it is for Middlesbrough to sell players for a profit, and who are willing to deal in the transfer market. It's not just about signing good players and keeping them with us for as long as possible. It's about signing good players who you can develop and sell on for a profit. And Emmanuel Latte Lath, if he does move on from Middlesbrough, whether it be to Atlanta or to someone else, he would certainly make a sizable profit for Middlesbrough. It should be a really good thing for the club, because it would help the coffers in terms of a business sense, but it would also offer a little bit of money for Middlesbrough to go out and sign a replacement. Potentially someone who has a higher ceiling than Latte Lath did as well. So certainly one to watch. Like I said, it does feel like a move which could take off at any moment. So by the time you're watching this video, this bit about Latte Lath could well be out of date. But yeah, certainly one to keep an eye on. In my opinion, I'd love him to stay at Middlesbrough, but the feeling is that it does feel increasingly likely that he probably won't be a Middlesbrough player by the end of the January transfer window. So I want to hear from you. There's a lot going on with Middlesbrough at the moment. Nothing has really materialised into concrete ins or concrete outs, but there's a lot going on, a lot of irons in the fire, and a lot which could potentially take off in the next couple of weeks. So let me know what you think about Middlesbrough's transfer business and the links that you're hearing about. What excites you? What are you a little bit concerned about? Drop into the comments below. Let me know what you think. And while you're at it, if you have enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe as well. There's going to be plenty more videos coming between now and the end of the transfer window. So I'll catch you then.